Good afternoon, or morning, or evening, depending on where you are watching this. My name is Brendan Vaughan. I'm editor-in-chief of Fast Company. I am here in Davos, along with leaders from around the world. Today we are going to be talking about one of my favorite subjects, stories, specifically the power of narrative to shape culture, share stories of cultures with the rest of the world, branding, advertising, communications, politics, and journalism, and other things. Story runs through all of these topics, and it is immensely powerful since time immemorial in persuasion, moving people, and changing minds. We're going to get into all that and more. I am thrilled today to have a very, very powerhouse panel here. To my immediate left, Her Highness Sheikha Latifa, Bint Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum. Next to Her Highness Maurice Lévy, Chairman Emeritus of the Publicis Group. And then at the end, Richard Edelman, CEO of Edelman USA, the largest independent comms company in America. So welcome, everyone. I would love to start by talking a little bit about soft power, which is another way of saying story, or at least story is a huge part of soft power. Richard, let's start with you, if we might. Oh, and by the way, if you are watching us and sharing anything that you hear here, hashtag WEF26 is what you should use when you share. How is soft power evolving in a unstable geopolitical environment characterized by fragmentation, uncertainty, and competing narratives?
So the first thing to say is stories matter, but also so does format and length. So Kamala Harris, for example, in part lost to Trump because she opted for interviews on mainstream media, very controlled 3-minute YouTube posts.
Right.
Trump did 2 hours with Joe Rogan, talking about football, talking about, whatever. And so, and meanwhile, Mandami, who's the new mayor of New York, did a, frankly, stunt on January 1st last year. He jumped in the Hudson River with his suit on, and he said, "I'm going to freeze rents." Get the joke? It was cold water. It was January 1st. Ha, ha, ha. But it became this viral sensation that I'm one of the people. I'm one of you. And he was up against 7 candidates, 34 years old, and he caught fire. So my point to you is we need to look at format. We need to look at length. And we need to be broad in our aperture, because podcasters and YouTubers and creators are as much of the horizon as mainstream media, if not more powerful.
You're hurting my feelings.
I'm sorry, but I'm telling you the truth.
It's absolutely true. Unmediated, disintermediated communication in politics. The recent winners from all over the spectrum, as you note, have taken full advantage of this. So Maurice, let's go to you. Let's hear about this from your perspective as somebody who has been thinking about brands and in all of the different ways that we talk about brands from a global perspective. How do you see story through the lens of branding changing in our modern world?
I agree with, to a certain extent, with my friend, because Richard is in the business since very long, and he has created something which is extremely important and remarkable. Congratulations. I said to a certain extent because clearly story matters, format matters, but what is even more important than the format and the story is how you deliver that story. And if you are capable or not of touching the people. And to speak about the Kamala Harris Trump campaign, clearly Kamala Harris was not able to touch the people. It was like if she was going on a glass wall. Yep. While Trump is speaking the language of the people and is right in connection with them, and he has the ability and the capability of really entering into a conversation as if he was speaking to one single person at a time. When it comes to branding, the landscape has changed so dramatically, and that one of the important reasons why I fully agree with Richard, that the way we were operating in the past has nothing to do with how we have to operate today. The very large, big campaign, the 60-second commercial on big network, all this is still play a small role, and what can happen with the big games of football, etc., can play a role, but the most important is today the multiple networks, the social network, and building brand today is much more complex, much more difficult, because there is so many media and so many means of communication that to be consistent through each message and each mean of communication is very complicated and very difficult on the long term. So what is the most important is to tell an authentic story, something which is true to the brand, something that lasts over time, and something that is not in contradiction with the way you are leading the company or the act or how you are dealing with the consumers or the customers.
Yeah, I mean, data being such a huge part of storytelling now at a time when, you referenced the kind of day of the 30-second spot, the big brand campaign that had all this impact. Now every little other element has to sort of be consistent with that. So I'd love to get into that data piece a little bit later in the conversation. First, though, let's hear from Your Highness. And Your Highness, forgive me, I neglected to name your title when I introduced you. She is the chairperson of the Dubai Culture and Arts Authority in the UAE. So story is a huge part of what you do, telling the story of Dubai's fascinating history, a history that we were talking a little bit before this session, not so long ago, was very different than the Dubai that the world knows today. How do you see the culture of the place being part of the story you're telling as you share Dubai's story with the world?
Well, first of all, I come from a different background, which is the public sector. And I want to speak today about how we do things in the public sector. And if you look at soft power is the ability to influence through attraction, not by force. Culture obviously is a huge role when you look at soft power, because culture is the thing that shapes a people's identity. And like I said, we live in a city that has people from around 195 different cultures and backgrounds, all of whom come to Dubai and are able to practice their culture, speak their own languages, practice their own religion. And they live in a very cohesive society that is open to them, that is very accepting. Now, when you speak about soft power and how to achieve soft power at the level of a city, for me, I agree with Maurice. It's very important initially to have a goal that is bigger than yourself and your organization, and something that would really impact your stakeholders, the people in the society. Once you have that goal, you have to work with integrity, with authenticity, and be very consistent, no matter the external factors. And that's how you build trust. And it's very interesting because, like I said, we live in a city with so many different nationalities and so many different cultures. And, being a minority in our own country, how do we amplify all those voices that coexist? And I think, from the outset, you see Dubai as a very forward-thinking city, very innovative, very progressive, but at the same time, we're people that are very rooted in our culture and our traditions. We live our traditions on a daily basis, in what we wear, the way we interact with people. We uphold, numerous values, the value of hospitality, the value of respect, the value of, good moral conduct. And that has a ripple effect throughout society. And with all these different cultures and all these different stories that, play about and come about in Dubai, the one connecting theme is everybody wants everyone to succeed in Dubai, because the success of one person has a ripple effect across the board, and everybody feels that success as well.
Okay. Trust is a good segue to my next question, which is going to be for you, Richard. You've built a lot of your business on the trust barometer. If people don't follow this, you should. It's an annual report that Edelman puts out. We cover it most years in Fast Company. There's always fascinating results and insights in it. But I think this has been happening for a while now. Trust has shifted from the government, my industry is not super high, to business as the most trusted institution. So what does this mean, for business, to have this both accomplishment of being a trusted institution relative to these other institutions, but it also puts a lot of responsibility on business for the stories that it tells, which, if only told in pursuit of profits, can have harmful implications and sometimes unintended consequences.
So 3 points. The first is price, quality, and now trust are equal factors in purchase. The second is nationalism is very real, and it's especially true in the Middle East. Multinational brands have a real challenge in the Middle East against local brands, and it's like a 30-point delta in trust between a domestic produced and a multinational. That's a new thing. And the third thing is...
Sorry, explain a little bit to what's new about it. What are the dynamics that make that new?
I mean, basically, people have intuited that if they support a domestic product, that they're making jobs and they're supporting the locals, and there's, in sometimes, kind of a political statement or whatever, they prefer that.
Yep.
And so we, publicists in Edelman, have to help multinationals make the case that they are polynational, not just multinational, that they're important in the market, they do local supply chains, they treat employees well, things like this. I think the third important point about trust that we just introduced it today is insularity. And insularity means I only trust people with my same values, my same information sources, and who agree with me on social issues. And what this means is I'm quite narrow in my opinions, I'm quite stuck in my ways, and I'm not really open to being persuaded, unless it's by someone who is like me. And so, in fact, Maurice is dead right when he says we've got to find ways to deliver these messages, but through trusted messengers. So as an example, a local doctor, a pastor, or in his case, he'll find through media buys the exact right channel that someone will believe. Because you can't do mass media, it's quite personalized.
Yeah.
But anyway, trust has become a core part of the marketing proposition. This wasn't so 10 years ago.
Maurice.
Yes, I think you mentioned government to businesses, but we can mention, and I'm sorry to say that for your business, but media to social media.
Yeah.
And you have the social networks and people you don't know, and people you have not a clue of who they are, who are telling you something which may be fake, and you trust more than the TV that you are linked to every day. So this shows that there is a shift which is quite dramatic in the way people are relating to something which is either government, which is very high, or media who are top-down. And that's the reason why all the networks which are a connection, individual connections, and the fact that you believe that you can relate to that person individually have an impact which is much more important. And that's the reason why we shifted at Publicis a large part of our business to data and technology. We started with digital at the end of the 90s, and we shifted quite dramatically with individual messages. Today, we can address with very small target groups with specific messages which are in relation to what that person is, what she likes, what she dislikes, and why she would buy, what is the motivation. And we can do that at a very, very narrow level. And this is what is making a big impact and changing really the way we are operating in the advertising world. Things have changed dramatically. When it comes to trust, again, I will tell you two things, two anecdotes, if I may. One, you have just to think 1 second what would have happened to George W. Bush Sr. With Read My Lips. For the people who don't know the story, he said that he will not raise the taxes, and he said, read my lips. And the year after that, he raised the taxes. In today's world, he would be killed in the social networks. And he would not have a social life, while in those days he has just lost the election, which is already quite a punishment, but not enough. The second story is something which happened last week. I met one of the future candidates for the French election, came to see me and said, Maurice, do you have an idea? I said, shit. You want to be president? You ask me if I have an idea?
Yeah.
The idea, not only you have to have them, but you have to have them in your belly. You have to have the guts, believe in it very strongly, and fight for them. It's not an ad person who will package something just nicely, and it's a nice package, and we sell it.
Right.
This world is past. If it ever happened,
right,
it passed. We are, if you want to be trusted, you have to be true, period.
He's right.
Yep. Yeah, the read my lips, no new taxes was bad enough before social media. Imagine the memes and all of the remixes and everything that would have happened now. It probably would have been considerably worse. Agreed. Your Highness, let's talk about how you get your message out on a granular level. You know, we've talked a little bit about, Maurice talked a lot about the data piece of this, all the different levers that can and must be pulled in order to get the overarching message through. Your overarching message is a very easy to understand and compelling one, but what about that level down, a couple levels down as you're trying to get that out? What have you found most effective in telling that story that you're trying to tell to the world?
So first of all, I mean, it's very simple. You have to actually do the work, and you have to achieve what you say you're going to achieve. And, you know, the leadership in Dubai, they keep us on our toes to deliver on our promises. Every time we launch a strategy, every time we talk about an initiative, we are, you know, held to that promise that and we have to deliver it. Anything that we do in Dubai has to be in accordance to our stakeholders. You know, any strategy we launch, any initiative we want to launch, we have to first speak to the stakeholders that we are serving. In my case, it's the creative industry, it's the creative sector. And And that way we have their buy-in. We listen to their challenges. We see the gaps in the industry. We listen to their solutions. We work together as a team, the private sector, the government sector, all our counterparts in the government. And we really put together a solid strategy that, once delivered, it's extremely impactful to our stakeholders. And you know, the way we see it, you can talk all day long, set narratives, tell stories, but if you don't actually do the work and deliver on the promise,
Right.
then you will not build that trust.
Trust is big. That word's coming up a lot. That is interesting, really, in a world where not interesting, I guess. It's quite expected and obvious in that tech is making untrustworthy things so easy to produce and rocket around the globe that earning trust and then keeping it, very easy thing to lose, as the saying goes, is crucial for all the different kinds of industries that are represented on this panel and stories that we're trying to tell. I'd love to hear Richard or Maurice. You guys have both been in the game for a while now. You mentioned sort of, I didn't hear admirably too much nostalgia in your characterization of the sort of golden age of the brand campaign, but that is, you know, not gone. There are still some really incredibly successful campaigns. I love the one that's right now, Don't Become Your Parents. You know, it's the insurance group that does the, you know, Don't Become Your Parents campaign. So that's an example of one. It can still very much be done. But as we get the message out in all of these much more focused and targeted and personalized ways, is something lost? Is there some kind of soulfulness in these campaigns that's lost in that data? And if not, how do you go about preserving it?
You go first.
I go first. There is no nostalgia because when you look at the advertising world, and since we have been able to really capture the very first ads, which were in 1842, till now, the world has changed on a regular basis. Every 10, 20 years, there is something new. And the beauty for the ad world is that you are changing at the speed and at the pace of the world. And you have to stay connected with the change of society if you want to participate to the new world. So there is no nostalgia. And when you look at the way we are operating today, you have, in fact, 4 layers. The first layer still exists. And for the Super Bowl, you have some great great commercials, fantastic. The last one for Pfizer was absolutely staggering. So you have that layer of the 30, 45, 60-second commercial, which give the tone and which is the message of the company top down. And then you have a second layer which is less massive and with segmentation and group, and these can be cable TV, newspapers, etc. And then you have 2 different layers of social networks and digital communication, a lot of digital communication with a lot of data. One for giving the reason why to prefer my product, and the second to act. So when you look at this kind of architecture, you see that every media has a role to play, and the technology can play a huge role, and we have not mentioned yet something which is coming, which is huge and which will transform again our business, which is AI. Just a small parenthesis on AI, there is something which will be extremely difficult to fight, and that is one of the reasons why we have a distortion of perception and conception between Europe and the US, because we believe that we must have some rules in order that fake information be controlled, or at least said, okay, it has been done by AI. And that is limiting a little bit, but this is something which we believe we should have a label, a signpost, something which says, be careful, this is not real. Because people do not make the difference between something real, something fake. So, and AI will help us, the positive aspect now, it will help us to better understand the people and to react immediately and to generate ads which are in tune with the needs of the people and also their personality. And we can multiple the number of ads unlimitedly. And that is probably what will change dramatically our business in the future.
Well,
So can I just
Please do.
piggyback?
Yeah.
So I always believe in giving examples because I think that's more tangible. And what I would give you is, I think increasingly marketers, us, are working with clients to try to help them reinvent their businesses. So it's not just that we're communicators, we're also advisors and strategists. Example, eBay wanted to have a secondhand clothing business. It's not like they're, cheap stuff. It's actually, Gucci and really nice brands. I don't know these brands, like you'll have to help me. But, like nice brands. But they're $2,000 instead of $20,000.
If they are nice brands, they are.
Yeah, they're French. Dior.
They are
Absolument.
French, and they are clients of Publicis.
Good. Okay. In any case, we're doing the second.
And they're more than $2,000, maybe.
And we're doing the secondhand stuff, so you can tell the difference, which is good. So anyway, we help them create a concept called Endless Runway, so that during Fashion Week, instead of trying to compete with Dior when they do the first line with all those fancy models, we had real people modeling the secondhand clothing, and we called it the Endless Runway, because the clothing has an endless life. Anyway, their sales went up 20%. My point to you is reinvent the business. The second thing I want to say to you is purpose has become problematic because it's politicized. I believe deeply in brands being good for society, good for consumers, all this stuff. But if you get the wrong tone, especially in my country, you get lampooned quite quickly by the right because they want to weaponize the content. So, Bud Light, et cetera. So the point I want to make to you is, if you want to do a campaign that has a mission, you have to first have a political lens about it. You need to talk to people who are conservative, for instance, or liberal, whichever side, and you need to make a judgment. And are you willing to take a little bit of heat? And if you have some heat, are you willing to push back and say, look, the mission of this is important, and here's why and how we're doing it. And be explicit, and don't try and just duck, because ducking doesn't work. Okay. That's a little free advice.
Yeah.
What do you think?
That doesn't work.
Ducking. You can't. You have to be engaged, and you have to talk back to people who criticize you.
Agree.
Yeah. Does ducking sometimes work, though? It just doesn't get that much attention when it works?
You get lucky and duck. Heck, you can do that, but sometimes you also get the ball in your face. And so it's better to preempt the problem and think through, is my purpose real? Am I doing something important? And if so, stand your ground.
Your Highness, how do you think about the politics of the stories that you're telling? You're talking to people from all different corners of the globe, who have a wide range of views that you might have to contend with. If you're inviting artists to come, to your country to show their work or host a big festival or something like that, would love to hear how you think about that and work that into the strategy behind your messaging.
So first of all, I think the messaging will come out of the overarching goal that we have, which has been passed down to us and instilled in us. And that goal is the happiness of the people of Dubai, the residents and the visitors. And so everything we do follows that. When we're talking about different narratives, I think for us, we really hold on to our values. The value of respect is huge. And it's not only respecting people from your own culture, but respecting people from so many different cultures who coexist with you. And it's something that I believe we've gotten used to at this point. It's something we really focus on, not to offend anyone, but also to respect their culture. Mm-hmm. And it goes deeper than, trying to duck, I think, or it's more about celebrating the different cultures that coexist with you. And, with the Edelman Trust Barometer that came out, we've moved past fears and polarization to insularity. And obviously he will know more about this than I do, but this closes off communities. And we believe in openness. We succeeded with openness. We succeeded by understanding each other. And I believe we shouldn't only connect with our similarities, but also celebrate our differences. If you live in a world where everybody looked the same and everybody spoke the same and operated the same way, in my opinion, that's a very boring world to be in. And I think the beauty of our world is in our differences. And that's something that we need to celebrate.
But the reason that people are insular is they're scared. And they're scared because they think AI is going to come for their jobs.
Yep.
They're scared because they've seen the effect of globalization, meaning jobs outsourced. They're scared because of inflation, and they can't keep up. Bacon costs $7, or, a package of bacon like this. And they have low optimism for the future. Maurice, literally, France is the bottom of our list of 28 countries. Only 5% of people believe that they'll be better off in the next generation. I mean, again, I just tell you this is a 1,000-person survey. I'm not saying it's authoritative, but it's indicative. And, Germany's just above. The U.S. is not much above that. We have to also solve this mass class divide. We have a serious problem of the bottom quartile of income really feels deeply pressed.
Yep.
And you have the difference. You have a rising economy. You have quite good results, but we're in the developed world. And so when you do your marketing, you need to address people, not just high income, but also people of all kinds, and you need to make them feel hope, because marketing has to be about optimism.
Right.
And give people a dream in a way.
I want to connect two themes that we've touched on, trust and AI. I'll stick with you here, Richard, to start this discussion. Can trust survive the AI age? And if so, what are the safeguards that really need to be put into place? Maurice mentioned, every creative asset or a message, I'm not sure exactly what you were referring to, but has some sort of this is real or this is not, or this was enhanced with AI or whatever it may be. What do we do to help trust survive the next, 5 years, much less the next, 50?
Let's face it, the work in our business is fundamentally changed by the ability to write scripts or do PR message points or press releases in a quite fast way. But using the models does not guarantee authenticity or accuracy. And so that's the first job. That's the minimum standard of what a communicator needs to be and do. And especially when we're sending stuff to media, we 3 times check it with experts because I can't pass stuff to you that is erroneous.
It's probably the biggest challenge that we will face and that future generation will face, because the more we go, the more the tools are accessible and are becoming more and more precise, good. You can today imitate a voice and you don't see the difference.
Yes.
A face from one picture, a photograph. You can make a movie.
Yeah.
And you can have someone saying something that he has never said, etc., etc. So there is several aspects. The first one, and the most important one, is obviously education. We have to educate our children and make sure that they are in tune with this new world. They understand the technology. They make a difference between something which has been created by the machine and something which has been said by somebody. We have also to value much more the virtues, and it looks today, and I don't want to speak about politics too much, but somebody who has a strong fist and say very strongly something outrageous and wrong, but with such power, you follow?
Yeah, we're definitely not talking about politics at all.
No, it's fake.
Yeah. Yes, I get it. Yeah.
Imagination.
Yeah.
It can reach a lot of people, and this can be the dominant truth. And there is nothing true in it. Yeah. So education is essential in order that the people can form their judgment, understand the difference, and make their own opinion. That's the first thing. The second is to have check and balances. We need laws. We are not in a jungle, and there is no reason why for the technology there should be no laws. Why there would be a space where everything is permitted. This is crazy. At FAST, you have rules,
yep.
And there are things that you cannot say. And if you are reporting on an interview, it has to be accurate.
Yep.
It has to be the same everywhere. Why these people should be exonerated from saying the truth? So there is a corpus of laws that has to be erected. And last but not least, there is the rewarding the people who are true more than the people who take some liberty with the truth.
Reward them how? Do you mean like in the algorithm, sort of?
Algorithm,
yeah.
Obviously, but not only algorithm. For example, you have people who have decided that, okay, there will be no moderation. Yeah. Whatever happen. Yeah. It's total freedom. It's good. Freedom is something, and liberty is something we cherish, and it has to be protected.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why we have to put some limits to that liberty.
Free speech is...
But I also think, Maurice, it's really important that we embrace creators as, in a certain way, filling out the horizon of information, because they speak to Gen Z.
Obviously, agree.
Yeah. And they're not an advertising channel. They are a really adjacent media.
Yeah.
I mean, and at CES, your team was there with Samsung with us. 2/3 of the people who came to the press event for the folding phone were creators. And they're doing their own stories, and they're free to say what they need. And I'm sure you do the same in Dubai, inviting creators.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's important.
Yeah. It's authentic.
Correct.
You mentioned Gen Z. I did want to ask a question about the generations here, generational generalities, of course. Caveat, problematic, we all know that, but there are still some things that that these cliched ideas about generations don't come from absolutely nowhere. There's something to some of them. So one thing I've noticed, I have 3 kids in college, on the trust question, they just assume, they're almost defaulting to this isn't true unless I see proof that it's true. So, which is both, I'm like, wow, you guys are not gullible. You're savvy. I'm glad about that, but that also makes me incredibly sad. That your assumption is that this is fake, or at least partially fake, and that you have to actually do some digging to get to the truth, or maybe get lucky and verify, oh, that actually was true. But to not be able to make that assumption. So what do we do with that?
There's a phenomenon that Gillian Tett of the FT found, which is Gen Z will read the headline, read the comments, and only if the comments are interesting, then they'll read the story.
Right.
Which I find phenomenal. I mean, I see a headline, I read a story. But the wisdom of the crowd is fundamental
to validate
the Gen Z experience, which should lead you as a marketer to say, I got to talk to the crowd. Let them have a voice, and then they're powerful.
Right. When you're designing campaigns, how do you think about that? The idea that your audience is always going to have come at the message with very different, assumptions, biases, et cetera. But do you think about that difference about the people that, the generation that's fully, not just digital native, but increasingly with Gen Alpha, AI native versus older?
Obviously, we have not only to take into consideration the generations, but the individuals. And that is what has shifted so dramatically in our business, that we speak necessarily to the masses, but very little. The bulk of the money goes to individual communication or very small group communication, group which are coherent, consistent, where the message can have an impact because it is clear, it is directed to these people, they understand it, it is not complicated, and it is, above all, true and speak to the heart. More than the mind. Yep. Don't forget that you penetrate the mind of the people through the heart. If you want to believe that you have a rational argument which is very strong, wrong. Rational argument can work for a small time, but what can really work for the long time and give permission for mistakes is the emotional relation. Yeah. And when you are capable of building that emotional relationship with your customers, people, consumers, you build something which is extremely strong and it gives you loyalty beyond reason.
So last question, 30 seconds each. Let's end on a positive note. I'll start with you, Richard. Just what's a story that you have told in your business, it can be to your employees, your clients, whatever, using AI that gives you hope for storytelling in the future? So
we found out that a quarterback put mayonnaise in his coffee for Hellman's, and we went wild with this. I mean, and he was pretty cheap to hire, and he was fun, and he posed like this with his coffee with the mayonnaise, and then we did an eau de cologne that smelled like mayonnaise, and we gave it to all the players on the team, and it was a joke, but you need humor.
Absolutely.
In this time, you have to make people laugh, and they went nuts.
American sense of humor?
Yes.
Your turn.
I cannot give you one example because there are so many, but one thing which happened recently that we have a very important client, they had a huge problem because of change of weather. It was for a dark beverage with gas, and they had to react almost immediately. And in the afternoon, we have been able to do some 60 different commercials that have run the next day.
Oh my God.
Amazing.
And that is changing the world.
That is game changing for sure, world changing. Your Highness, take us over the finish line.
Well, I don't think I've ever used AI yet to tell a story, but maybe we will follow suit and try something.
Yeah.
Don't do the mayonnaise in the coffee.
I don't think that will work.
It's a good joke, but
I don't think that will work in our side of the world.
That look like they were created with AI 20 years ago, and now they're real in Dubai and have been for a while.
Right.
So that's a good note to end. Thank you, panelists. Fascinating conversation. Thank you, audience. Thank you, Wes. Thanks, everyone. All right.
Thank you, Brian.